To begin, I would like to give a bit of background information on the game Fallout 4. It is a post-apocalyptic action role-playing video game developed by Bethesda Game Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks. It is the fifth major installment in the Fallout series and was released worldwide on November 10, 2015, for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. The game is set within an open-world post-apocalyptic environment that encompasses the city of Boston and the surrounding Massachusetts region known as the Commonwealth. The main story takes place in the year 2287, 10 years after the events of the previous game Fallout 3 and 210 years after the Great War, which caused catastrophic nuclear devastation across the United States. The gameplay consists of the player assuming control of a character referred to as the sole survivor, whom emerges from a long-term cryogenic stasis in Vault 111, an underground nuclear fallout shelter. After witnessing the murder of their spouse and kidnapping of their son, the sole survivor ventures out into the Commonwealth to search for their missing child. The events of Fallout 4 follow the adventures of a character who experienced the best of the utopic pre-war era and who also got to experience the dystopian reality of the post-war wastelands, thanks to being cryogenically preserved as part of the experiments run by a company called Vault-Tec. This character, the Lone Wanderer, travels through the new wasteland facing many situations designed to contrast the differences with the utopic past. Jeremy Davis in A Sustainable Society Nostalgia, Memory Studies 3 describes a key aspect of sustainability as follows. What sustainability implies most readily is not separation but continuity. The keeping of things as they are and the diminution of the otherness of the future. A sustainable way of life is one that is self-reinforcing, one that is able to reproduce its essential features indefinitely. This is an interesting parallel with the Fallout 4 story, as the pre-war life was not sustainable according to this definition. By its very nature, it led to resource exhaustion, which forced countries to fight each other in order to maintain their quality of life. The wasteland of the dystopian post-war era does not escape from this definition either, with many of the Lone Wanderer challenges revolving around procuring and stretching resources to increase the quality of life for settlers. By mastering certain skills and managing resources efficiently, the Lone Wanderer can create settlements that bring an improvement life to its inhabitants. The specific scene that I am choosing to pick apart for this write-up out of the entire game is the beginning scene where the main character is running out of his home along with his family towards their designated bunkers. They run past many screaming children and panic-filled parents as they make their way past their neighborhood and closer to the hills in the background. Then they reach a fence that is heavily guarded. They go through it and make it to the help platform that is ready to take them to the bunker just in time. Just as they begin to descend to safety, the first nuke goes off, far in the distance, signaling that nothing will ever be the same. I picked this scene because it sets up for what is the apocalyptic setting the game takes place in. This idea about our future affects it because it stares away from the normal visions of the future, those being the ones where everything is really modern looking, filled with extremely tall skyscrapers and flying vehicles. This affects all aspects of our future society, ecologically and technologically. I want to focus on the ecological aspect, however. It changes our vision of the future being a perfect utopia where humans have achieved complete control of their surroundings and transforms into this vision where humans have to fight for survival every day. There is no talk about sustainability because of the fact that humans are not present with problems about resource management. Instead, they are present with problems regarding where to find the materials to undergo what they want to do. It also affects our perception of the future from a societal standpoint because it completely changes the vision of how humans coexist in the future. Instead of being one single population coexisting peacefully, the entire population is spread out through the territory, and they all live in their separate colonies that belong to a certain faction. There can be a conflict or peace depending on how the relations between factions is at the time. This game also altered our vision of what the future is going to be like from a technological viewpoint, because it changed from what we envisioned being very modern and clean to to a more primitive era where the only technological advances being made were for weapons of mass control. Ultimately, this game alters the traditional views of what the general public expects from the future. The wasteland depicted in Fallout 4 constitutes the hardest example of environmental destruction and its impact in the future. An all-out nuclear war that left behind a scorched radioactive Earth populated by grossly and dangerously mutilated animals. Even in this desolate land, the protagonist can become a force of change by focusing on bringing back some sustainability into the way of life of wasteland inhabitants. For most inhabitants of the Fallout timeline, the pre-war future would have looked bright, flying cars and all sorts of creature comforts. By not using the environmental resources sustainably, their future, that of the ones that survived, became a nightmare instead of as resources ran out, and survival turned into a primal game of life and death.